Internal knowledge bases act as the source of truth for employees. And today they're being powered by AI. And that may seem unnecessary or redundant, but let me get into the details as to why that's amazing and how to implement it for yourself. So, AI changes everything. The old way for an internal knowledge base is basically just a file repository, static documents buried in folders. A lot of the time, employees have to go digging. They may not know where things are. They're going to be asking colleagues or supervisors and wasting everybody's time. With AI, this is the new way. They can do conversational search. So they ask a question and the chatbot comes back and answers it with a reference to the documentation of the internal knowledge base if they want to read more. And it can provide all sorts of other things. But basically, it's saving the employee time because they're not searching through documentation. It's saving their colleagues time because they're not answering questions. And it's saving their supervisors time because they're not answering questions from all of their subordinates. They can just refer them to the actual documentation. So the first step is gathering the right knowledge when you're building an internal knowledge base. So you need to identify these pain points, right? What are the questions that you're being asked? You need to map the critical processes. So what processes are failing or what processes, if they were to fail, would disrupt your business in very large ways. And then you need to capture the institutional memory. So what knowledge is at risk of being lost to turnover? If someone left, what knowledge would be lost and how can we make sure that's documented? An internal knowledge base is all about preserving. It should be the memory of your organization because people come and go. They may need to move, whatever. Even good companies have churn. So we need to make sure that everything that they know, all the processes that they understand are written down somewhere. So that's the core of a internal knowledge base. So procedures and policies, frequently asked questions or how to troubleshoot, any news or product updates that are in the pipeline. If you already have a knowledge base, if there's product updates that need to be updated into that base. And then any training and onboarding documentation is actually going to be really valuable in an internal knowledge base because you're training everybody in the future all at the same time by updating your knowledge base. So making this knowledge base truly accessible by your employees, having a mobile responsive design, so something that is accessible and readable on mobile devices if they're not at a computer and they need to access this information. It needs to have advanced search with filters. And we can talk about AI is the most advanced search, but it needs to have really good searching capabilities anyway. And then role-based access controls. A lot of the time, documentation shouldn't be accessed by every level of employee. So having that built in is important for some organizations. Okay, so let's talk about natural language processing, also known as artificial intelligence, as we're using it today. Natural language processing allows employees to specifically just basically ask the knowledge base a question. So if they have questions on specific orders of operations, they can just ask the knowledge base. And the knowledge base in this situation is a chatbot that's hosted and or run in a lot of different locations, perhaps Slack, Microsoft Teams, maybe it has an email address that it runs out of, and they can ask this documentation, hey, here's a question about this policy. And then it can respond directly with references to their material. How do I submit a reimbursement? What's our policy on remote work equipment? How do I contact IT for issues? Those questions may have been in the onboarding documentation, but those documents, as we all know, can get really long and complex. And even though they may have read it once, it didn't necessarily stick because they're like, oh, it's in there, I'll remember. So would you rather your employee not do these things because they can't find the documentation on how to do it, or do it because it's a lot easier? And taking it a step further, if the chatbot is really well enabled with tools and integrated into your systems, can actually do a lot of these things for them. How do I submit a reimbursement? It's here, but I can also walk you through it and then submit it myself. Do you have your receipt? What's our policy on remote work equipment? Oh, we're allowed as long as you fill out this form. I filled it out most of the way for you. Here you go. You just need to submit it. Who do I contact for IT issues? Oh, let me loop in the right person. And then it tags that person in the chats. Those sort of things. So now you're taking documentation and giving it arms and legs, right? You're giving it the ability to take action. So that idea of it being an always on assistant, so always accessible, always fast responses, right? Employee can ask a question at 10 p.m. at night and get an answer immediately. It can search and summarize the documentation, right? It's not just guessing, it's basing its answers in fact, and then instant accurate responses. Employees get answers to their questions based in fact, fast, at any time and anywhere. Okay. So I talked about some different tools that you can integrate with, but here are the base ones that you're going to want for an internal knowledge. So collaboration platforms. If AI is going to be responding to your employees, it needs to be where your employees are. Slack, Microsoft Teams, email. If you have some sort of ticketing software is another one. Project management tools. So if there's current projects going on, like you have customers and you want to have basically an oracle for that customer. You want all of the transcripts from every meeting that's been held with the customer. You want all their contracts, all that information in one place so that you can ask this internal knowledge base software questions about the customer history, and it can pull all that logs and digest it and give you the information very quickly. We all know that going through a transcript of a call can be a nightmare. They're really long. So having something that can summarize and understand all of the different conversations that have ever been had, it can then provide that. And the last piece is learning management systems. If you are a large enough organization that you have a learning management system, this is a gold mine for people like us, right? People that implement AI in organizations, because we know that these learning management systems are designed to train people on how to do certain things. So it can do the same for artificial intelligence, and it's actually a massive jumpstart for us. So it's absolutely important that you integrate your learning management system with your AI. Okay, so choosing the right AI knowledge-based software. There's new tools popping up all the time. And so creating some sort of like list is just not feasible because it changes constantly. And a lot of the time, the answer is customizability, and it's something that was made for you. So usability, obviously, it needs to be easy to use. AI in search, right? That is the core of it. If the AI can't access the documentation, what is it doing? If it's just a general chatbot that is branded, that's useless for you. Okay. So security, it needs to be safe and it needs to be scalable. So scalable meaning it should be not like a fixed amount of processing, because a lot of the time you're going to get very large bumps in use. So it needs to have some sort of ability to scale up or down depending on your needs. Okay, so here's a quick little run. Audit and gather all of the critical knowledge. Okay. You need to find every piece of information that your company uses as gospel, right? What's the most important pieces? Then you need to structure it. So you need to have a hierarchy of information, right? If you have a manual, that is your main source, so that if anything else conflicts, that is the main reference. So, for example, someone asks a question and there's conflicting information because of something down lower, it'll say, this is what this says, refer to the employee handbook. Then you can select a platform. So you need to have whatever, if you're hiring a third party, they'll integrate it inside of whatever you're using, inside of your tools, or there's some web-based stuff out there that can, anyway, you need to select your platform. And usually your two options are hire a third party or do something in-house, build or buy. So building it yourself, this is going to be fairly expensive. You're talking about hiring people, you have timelines, and a lot of the times these can fall short. So it's generally at this point, especially a better idea to buy, especially with AI changing so fast. So you need to activate your natural language processing search, chatbots, and automations based on changes. And then as it's being deployed, you measure and refine the answers. So this measure and refine period is all about gauging success and seeing where you're going from there. So that's how to build an internal knowledge base using an AI chatbot. Another thing that is really important is going back to these project management tools. Having an internal knowledge base where it's just based on the documentation that you have is great, especially if you have some really complicated processes. But if you really want to make it special, it needs to be a living, breathing area of your business. And I say that living, breathing, not literal. It just needs to be dynamic, right? You're using artificial intelligence to absorb and update information. the example where I talked about having a client and you have all of that client data aggregated into an internal knowledge base so that you can reference previous conversations, you can track sentiment, you can track what's important to the customer. That's where this falls into and can act as a really amazing knowledge base for not only like your base employees, but your sales staff and all of your account managers, things like that. There's lots of different ways to do this, but base level is documents in a folder. Then there's lots of different software implementations for an internal knowledge base. And then the highest level right now is utilizing artificial intelligence to make your knowledge base smart, right? Making it so that it can have a conversation with you, provide insights at the click of a button. So thanks for joining us. This is Bottable AI. Reach out if you want to learn more about how we can help you implement artificial intelligence in your business, and hope to see you on the next video.